Hey Nevo, welcome back to school.
Thank you.
How you doing?
Yeah, it's good. It's good to be here. I'm excited about this podcast.
Me too. And I also want to fill you in on a little secret, if that's okay. The reason I'm excited for this conversation is because A, you're my first guest on this podcast from South Africa. Yay. And B, you're a self-proclaimed pricing nerd. What is a pricing nerd?
So I guess a pricing nerd is fascinated, or at least I'm fascinated with the impact that price has on product. So versus just looking at the idea and people, in business models, we often don't spend enough time really understanding how the value proposition and the pricing strategy align. And so I guess as a pricing nerd, I'm always fascinating about not just the product itself, but what is the model that it goes to market with, and where are those maximizers that give you outweighed returns for the idea. So to give you an example, a lot of marketplace type models reward the marketplace or the market maker not based on the value of their service, but based on the value of the service to somebody else that's utilizing it. So, as a more practical example, if you think of foreign exchange as a marketplace, right? The value of the service, it's normally percentage based, increases as I need to exchange more money. So I'm paying more for a service that in no way really changes for the product owner, for the person that's providing me the foreign exchange service at all, even though I'm paying more money for it. And those models I just find very interesting, and other models like the whole idea of maximizing your price based on externalities. In other words, something that is valuable to the customer but it makes no difference to you intrinsically is very interesting from a pricing perspective. So that's maybe a bit of a pricing nerd.
That's great. I mean, I guess what you're saying is that there's a lot of sort of money left on the table just because we're, I guess, overlooking pricing in our innovation strategy.
I think so. I think there's either money left on the table, or often what we do is we price against the maximize. So we actually price against the stuff that we need to make free because we're trying to maximize profit where there maybe isn't so much profit to be made. And we lose out on growth because we've actually put pricing in the way of growth. I'll give you an example. A lot of SaaS companies, I think, often start out pricing too high initially and underestimate the pain of inertia for customers to switch because they overestimate the benefits that their product will give the customer. And these benefits are often unrealized by the customer yet. They're not using the product. And so the customers never switch. And so they never get that runway. And their fear is always they can't increase their price later on. But again, they then undervalue the inertia of going off their product at a later stage. If I've seen any experience on SaaS products, I haven't seen many SaaS products get cheaper over time. I've only seen them increase in price. And so often our pricing strategy doesn't kind of think about the onboarding phase. And it might not be that you charge them less per month, but maybe you discount it for a period of time, or maybe you give them an onboarding service that has to be priced a certain way. But you just understand what the metrics are to enable more adoption versus less adoption. I think those are critical components.
So it's not really a black and white decision that you have to make. There are a lot of other components. I hear that what you're saying is that there's a lot of psychology that goes into how you price a product, right? I mean, I guess the SaaS companies that price high are trying to send a message to prospective clients that their product, service, whatever is better, is high quality, right? But then by doing that, they actually lose a fair amount of traction.
So I think pricing high isn't the issue, and signaling quality isn't the issue. What you want to do though then is give people an onboarding period for a long period of time, which allows them to either integrate the SaaS product or utilize it more effectively. And you've seen that a bit in freemium offerings, how people structure freemium offerings, where they say, oh, it's free until you use this level of functionality, then you start paying. That's one way of doing it. But it's that whole inducement phase of utilization that you really want to think through. And it's also often about what you price for. I've seen a lot of SaaS companies price for too many components of their product, and they don't, like, because they don't really understand what, like, they could price for number of transactions and then like number of gigabytes. They put all these strange limits on the product which don't really make sense, and make it very hard for customers to buy. Especially enterprise SaaS companies, at early stages where they don't really have a good understanding of what their value drivers are. They'll put too many price points out, making it too hard to buy as a customer, and it makes deals very complicated. So for me, that's where kind of the price and the product really come in, and it's a key part of product market fit, right? Of understanding what is the value that I'm charging you for that you feel good about paying, right? The thing that you go, yes, this is definitely a valuable thing. I'm happy to pay for this. Um, and it doesn't really change the nature of the product. It's just understanding very clearly what is the value, how do you see it, and how you're willing to pay for it.
I think that's an interesting perspective that you're sort of outlining, where pricing, because well, you're a pricing nerd, so I guess you like you know um, dealing with these issues or making decisions around pricing, but most people try to stay as far away as they can from them. And the perspective that you're proposing here is that you look as pricing as a way to augment the sort of the user experience of the product, where I can think of like different SaaS companies. Like I use Calendly a lot, right, for all my calendar scheduling, and their pricing actually makes me want to use their product more. It's like one of the only products that I've actually increased the money I spend on the product, because the pricing kind of really contributes to the you know to the user experience of the product itself. So what would be like, I guess, one tip, or maybe your number one tip, that you could give to someone who's not a pricing nerd, to kind of get them to think differently about pricing?
So what I'd recommend is, and again, we're speaking about innovation, so probably speaking to lots of people with product or design thinking backgrounds and those kind of things. So the persona is actually quite a powerful tool to understand your pricing, um, because what it does is starts giving you hints. And what I would do is, just like you do a user journey, do a buying journey and understand what is it that drives that purchasing decision along the journey, and what are the key drivers for that purchasing decision, right? And what holds people back. um, for me, that's the critical thing to understand, is what really makes somebody click the green button that says, pay with my credit card,
Take my money.
take my money.
Yeah.
Yeah, because often we don't do that, right? We build a great product and we're so besotted with the benefits of the product, we just don't look at the negatives. We don't look at the inertia. We don't look at how hard it is for people to adopt something new and switch and pay for it. So the default is, I'm going to make it free and I'm going to get lots of adoption. Free doesn't really work either very often, because you might get adoption, but if you still haven't delivered value, that adoption may not actually be sticky, right? Or you maybe haven't figured out your business model yet around it. Um, and from an enterprise SaaS point of view, just really, especially when the person using it and the person buying it are two different people, then you really have to understand very clearly how you're putting forward the buying value proposition versus the using value proposition, because it might be very, very different things.
Awesome. How can people get in touch with you, maybe if they have questions or want to get more information?
Sure. Best way is probably send me an email. It's Nevo, Nevo, at dydx.digital, or just connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message. I do kind of look at that, every few days, and I'll get back to you.
Perfect. Perfect. So we'll put all that information in the show notes. Nevo, thank you so much for your time today. That was super informative.
Cool. Thank you, Yaniv. I enjoyed it a lot.